And I work with, or have taught a bit with a fellow called David Dunning, who is a social psychologist whom I adore, who's come up with a theory that explains the world better than any other theory. He says he's discovered that he's been fascinated by how good people are at knowing how good they are at doing things. Self-assessment. He's discovered that in order to know how good you are at something requires almost exactly the same skills as it does to be good at it in the first place. So that if you're absolutely no good at something, you lack exactly the skills that you need to know you're no fucking... That's very good.
The reason God has to die is that so superhumans can live. We have to stop projecting our own divinity and our own immortality outside of ourselves. And this is what Nietzsche was objecting to. He objected to religion not because of its extreme claims. He was saying something much more extreme, much more outrageous, frankly. He objected to religion because it made people weak.
Kripal convincingly shows in his book that many of the foundational thinkers in the humanities, like Nietzsche, Jacques Derrida, Schopenhauer, or William James, had a very open mind when it comes to metaphysics, to ontology, and that they arrived at many of their important ideas not only through scientific reasoning.
Some of the most significant individuals in the history of humanities came to their ideas through altered states. We make the mistake of thinking these people thought their way to these ideas. They did not think their way to these ideas. We have to take seriously these ideas as coming from outside the individual.
Sean, is consciousness a byproduct of brain activity, or the mind is primary to matter? And is there reliable evidence that led you to your conclusions?
Well, I mean, I have no idea who we're talking to here or what they might know about parapsychology. But I would say simply to summarize that whole dimension of the subject, that in the past 150 or so years, enough evidence has accumulated from case and field studies, plus a couple of thousand experimental studies, to convince any reasonably open-minded person who takes the trouble to study it that these phenomena exist as facts of nature, period, and that our science will have to expand in some way that permits it to accommodate them. And I think you can take that to the bank.
Waiting for, go back to sleep, thinking nothing. And all of a sudden, out of the chest, just energy was coming out of my chest, but it was love. And it was love that was never felt before. It was love that was coming from me. How can love come from me? I mean, it was unthinkable that love could come from me. And it was 10,000 times more powerful than any love that I felt before. I mean, in fact, I never felt that love because it was unconditional love. Now I have a name for it. It was love, period. Yes, it was coming from me, but it was love. And it was light. It was a white light scintillating. It was, like sparkles, and it was coming out. And then it explodes and it's everywhere. But it's everywhere, but my consciousness is there too. So not only my consciousness is within me, but it's also outside of me. And all of a sudden I realize I am that. So I am the observer and the observed simultaneously. But I retain my point of view. And then I realize, oh my God, this stuff is the stuff of which everything is made. Everything comes from this stuff. And my body was hot, it was vibrating, you know, like the cells of my body were resonating with this thing. You know, of course, the emotion, the feelings was love, joy, and peace. Because this stuff felt like, that's me. I'm at home. This is me. So I'm finally home. This is the, you know, this is home. But so it was all mixed up.
What happens, I mean, for people to understand, what happens when we die? And they say
we don't go anywhere because we never were in the body. It's the body that dies. We don't die. I mean,
we first had to get down to the basics of consciousness.
There's no Turing test for consciousness. The problem of consciousness is not just what most people think, oh, you have to explain how anything can be conscious. That is a problem. But then you also have to explain in each case, why is the particular conscious experience the way it is?
Yeah, that's interesting, yeah.
Whether I'm on mushroom or angry, these are different experiences,
Yeah,
and you have to explain how I can have different experiences.
Yeah. We tend to believe that if a system behaves conscious, it might be conscious. Now, IIT doesn't want to take consciousness at face value.
It's not about behavior. Ultimately, you have to look at the hardware level. You have to look at the level where the rubber meets the road. You actually have to look at one transistor acting on other transistors.
According to IIT, consciousness has to do with the interconnectedness of the hardware of a system, its integrated information. It measures this as phi. Now, what makes the theory widely applicable is that any system, not only brains, has a phi.
Consciousness may be much more widespread than we think.
Yeah.
A single cell bacteria may already feel like something.
Now, where IIT to me becomes really fascinating is that it has no theoretical objections to the idea of a higher form of mind that extends beyond our brains. And a larger consciousness, as you said earlier, would wipe out sort of, if we, the two of us, connect, sort of, and it becomes this new maximum integrated information, it will wipe out our conscious experience.
Correct. Suddenly the complexity, this phi measure of our integrated brain, will exceed that of my brain by itself and of your brain by itself. At that point, what will happen? Hans, gone. Christoph, gone. Instead, there will be this new Ubermind, okay, this new amalgamation of Hans and Christoph that'll see out of 4 eyes, that'll have 2 mouths, etc.
Christoph Koch is a brilliant, open-minded scientist. But what made this conversation really stand out for me is that he also knows the moment where art sometimes better describes the depth of human consciousness than science. And as a German, he knows his classics.
To quote from the second act of Tristan und Isolde, selbst dann bin ich die Welt. That's exactly then I am. The title of my next book, Then I Am the World. Because then I experience the world and me as being identical.
Did you have that experience?
Yes, I did.
Does nature speak to us in a language that we don't fully hear anymore?
Yes.
This video is about biosemiotics, a new way to understand non-human consciousness in nature.
What you saw was the elephants on the coastal zones. They broke free from their shackles and they headed for the hills, and the people followed them.
Before the tsunami, this is, of course, yeah.
Hours before the tsunami. No human and none of our artifacts of measurement knew what was going on, but they knew. Our mind is in the world. Our mind is emergent through the relations we have with all the other beings and all the other strands. Every organism sees a different part of reality.
Yeah, has a different dashboard.
Yeah. And insofar as we can become aware of any other organism, we are sharing some sort of umwelt. There's some overlap. You're killing ways of seeing the world, ways of being in the world. You know, when we destroy olive trees that have been around for 1,000 years, we don't know what relations those olive trees were holding up on an ecological level, but also on a semiotic one. When we are scrolling through our black mirrors, you know, looking for that dopamine release, what we're actually craving is to be nestled in the branches or the roots of a tree. In Japan, they have Shinrin-yoku, forest bathing, where doctors prescribe for various illnesses, go be in a forest, lie down, breathe, be there for an hour, feel all your emotions.
We need to feel again, you said.
That's the only way that we will survive.
Your brain channels consciousness, it doesn't produce it. The cosmos becomes sapient. From a computational perspective, super simple rules kind of suddenly give rise to very complex behavior. The cosmos appears to be assembling very complex contraptions like our brains, which are then able to channel the base consciousness. It's a participatory universe. So the participation is consciousness. Wave function collapse, and you have an observation here, and then the probabilities become something. What happens in between, there's nothing, that's like metaphysical no man's land. You have two metaphysical choices. Either it's like this cosmic nihilism, it's random, has no purpose, shut up, die, whatever, nothing's going to happen. Or you have these dogmatic, static religions which tell you exactly, very detailed, what is what and how it works. So I find these are both disillusioned. I think a modern version of idealism is what we need, a scientific spirituality. So it's scientific, it means you're dealing with consensus reality and you're not denying it. And spirituality being that you are kind of open to working with your own consciousness. Everything can be decoded and has a meaning. And I believe the Western mind has totally forgotten about kind of this symbolic way of cognition.
It's almost to me as if the universe grants us mathematical physics as a sort of to comfort us, to give us a tiny bit of control. But then the moment you go in, then you're just...
And the real world.
Were you happy with the movie The Matrix, what it did sort of culturally with that metaphor?
The Matrix really does open people's minds up to the possibility that what they're experiencing is just a simulation, right? Now, in the Matrix, though, once you pop out of the simulation, it's another space-time world. So when Neo takes off the headset, he's back in a space-time world.
Welcome to the real world.
So is Trinity and everybody, they're all in a space-time world. So this, what I'm saying, is even more radical, that whatever is beyond space-time is utterly unlike space and time.
But this is like fundamental stuff, right? This is the real cool stuff. We're still thinking of traveling in space-time, and we have all these space-time fantasies, right? And
most of the galaxies that we can see, we could never go to. Space is expanding so quickly that we could never get to them through space, moving at the speed of light. So there's all this real estate out there that we can see that's waving at us and saying, nanny, nanny, you can never get here. Well, that's if you go through space-time. But if space-time is just a headset, think about the options that come. You don't have to go through space-time, you could go around space-time. When we let go of the physicalist framework, we say, no, I am consciousness. I transcend this. Death is just stepping out of this headset. In other words, we're wired up to take the headset seriously. And so consciousness sort of wired itself up to take the headset seriously. But part of the waking up process is to step back and go, oh, wow, okay. Oh, no, I'm not a little thing inside the headset. The headset is inside of me. I'm eventually going to take the headset off. So I can have a looser relationship with all this stuff. I don't need to get that big house to be something. I don't need to have that big scientific paper. I don't need to be acknowledged.
So I wouldn't say it was like projected on a wall or a movie screen opened up. It was more like I just could access it. And it was exactly what people talk about with the life review, in that I saw most of my life going by like a movie. I saw good and bad. And one of the things that really stuck with me that I want to share with you is about bad people. Why do bad things happen? Why is there evil? I had a good childhood growing up. I had a lot of happy moments. My parents were, good parents for the most part, but my father was abusive. He had probably what most people would describe as a sex addiction, and he took that out on me. And in that life review, then I was able to see that we plan our lives, and this is very hard to hear for a lot of people. We planned that. If you want to look at another story, Betty Guadagno talks about this as well. We planned to play what could be described as good and evil, right? So he went to Earth to learn things. His soul went there because it wanted to experience certain things which would make his soul stronger, and consequently make all of us stronger, because we're all one. And I went there to serve in a space where I could make that happen for him. So I could put myself in a space where he could do what he needed to do to grow his soul, to grow our souls, and likewise the same thing for me. So that helped me understand that situation so much better when I was able to access that memory of that life review experience when I came back to Earth. And then as the life review is coming to an end, I'm realizing, because here's another really interesting thing about good and evil and all of that, right? So I've left my human body, and when we're in our human bodies, we're under the veil, and we have these expectations which are very different than when you go home. Because like I was just talking about, if I planned a life where I agreed to be used, which seems so strange on this side, that's a really good view into how we are thinking so differently on the other side. So here I am in this life review, and the only person who judges you, the only entity that judges you on the other side, is you. So the only person judging me is me. Every other entity around me, every other soul, every other person is so loving and compassionate and, holding me and cheering me on for going through these things. But I'm still chastising myself about these choices I made, because I'm still partially connected with my human body, with my human self. Angela's still in there. And as I'm chastising myself, I'm thinking, well, on Earth, we're told if we don't do things right, we're supposed to go to purgatory or hell or something like that. Maybe I should do that. And Melanie, because it's all telepathic, is at the exact same time thinking, wait, no, you are a very good person, and we love you, and we support you, and right, all in the same moment, right? Just like when I was in the hospital room, and it's all happening instantaneously.
Bit of maybe my time on the other side, the near-death experience that I had when I was 29 years old. I'm 37. That was caused actually from a plant called water hemlock. For those of you that don't know what water hemlock is, it's a poisonous plant, one of the most poisonous plants in North America. To this date, I am the only known survivor that I've communicated with, or that anybody's ever introduced me to, that has had an interaction with this plant and come back from that with an experience. The plant was created basically like numbness in my peripheral nervous system, which then suffocated me to death. But in all aspects, it was a blessing, because what I realized is from the other side of it, what life really is, and that we actually don't die. What I have to say about that experience is that the more we struggle to live is the more actually we feel pain when it comes to dying. And what death has taught me is that the more we surrender to this life that we have, in embracing all of our challenges and our insecurities and our suffering and our pain, the less pain, resistance, and suffering we actually really do tangibly experience in this physical body. And for some of us, that might seem really lofty and ridiculous to say, like, we can't feel pain in this body anymore. But it's not that we don't feel pain, it's that we carry a new perspective about pain that actually liberates us from a lot of the lessons or difficulties actually that God wants to show us in our life, because God is actually showing us what we need to learn in this life about life and love itself through these experiences with.
You were saving me and now I'm dying. And they started to talk to me as I was moving through what it felt like time and space into this tunnel. And Archangel Michael was the one who I felt was doing most of the talking. And he was starting to show me the experiences in my life and my mindset. I felt that I was right back in the mindset or in the emotional experience of this hard time I was going through. And at the same time, he was showing me the higher meaning and the higher purpose around it. And he said, you are not defined by your thoughts and feelings. You are not your mind. You are an unlimited, omnipotent being. You are unlimited consciousness. And we are bestowing upon you this miraculous healing, this divine intervention, so that you can see the power that you have, because you are one part of a whole of this unlimited consciousness, which is source. And as he was talking to me, I could see that they were performing this miraculous healing by what it felt like was energy going into my lungs. And they were asking me to release my guilt, to release my sorrow, to release my anger. I had gone through a divorce and I was remarried, but I had a lot of guilt around my divorce. I had a lot of shame around my financial situation that I was in at that moment. I wasn't able to take care of my children fully. I had to ask for help. And so I had stored all this emotional trauma in my chest. It must have been part of the asthma that I was feeling. And they were asking me to release. And they were asking me to receive. And then they started to tell me that I am not my body, that I am boundless, that we are all boundless, that we are all unlimited again in consciousness, and that our true essence is this unlimited state of consciousness, this omnipotent power that we have within us that is source. And then he started to tell me that now I'm going to become one with source, become one with God, so that I could feel what it was like to actually be the source that I stem from, that I am part of, that is within me, that we are all connected to. And so as he was explaining,
like I was just floating. I couldn't see a body, like I didn't have a body. And I didn't see a white, you know how people say like you have a tunnel. There was no tunnel. I didn't see anyone. I didn't see any people. I was just floating. And I felt so good, really, that I got rid of all this stuff behind me that's on this earth. You know, all my problems suddenly went away. Everything had gone. The stress I had with my ex-partner, you know, and the dealings with her cult and all the rest of it. It's like, oh, I could just be me in that space.